Which value of x is f of x greater than g of x? So this means that f of x is above g of x. This also means that f of x is on top of g of x. Now, if we look at our functions here, where is f of x on top? Where is f of x above g of x? It is here, this point here, which is highlighted in orange. That is where we find that the function f of x is above g of x. So that would be between -2 and 5. So it is when x is greater than -2 but less than 5. Because if we actually look elsewhere here, which is in yellow, we see that the function that is on top is what? It is g of x. But we want f of x to be on top. And if we look on this side, the function which is on top is g of x, but we want f of x to be on top. So the only place where f of x is above g of x is the one which is in orange, between the x value of -2 and the x value of 5. If we wanted where f of x is less than g of x, this means that f of x is below g of x. Now, where would f of x be below g of x? We can see on this side, f of x is below g of x onto the left of -2, and also to the right of 5, f of x is below g of x. So our answer would be when x is less than -2 or when x is greater than 5. So let's take a look at another example. For which values of x is f of x less than g of x? Now, f of x will be less than g of x when f of x is below g of x. So if we take a look at our graphs, we can see that f of x is below g of x, the part which I am highlighting in orange. So that is between 0 and 4. So it is when x is greater than 0 but less than 4. That is where f of x is below g of x. Because elsewhere, if we look elsewhere, this part here, f of x is on top. F of x is greater than g of x here. And as well as on this side, f of x is on top. So the only place where f of x is below g of x is right here. Here's another example. We want where f of x is greater than g of x, meaning that f of x is above g of x. So where is f of x above g of x? Over here and over here. So that is where f of x is above g of x. So that happens when x is greater than 7 from this point onwards all the way to infinity. So that's when x is greater than 7 or between -1 and 3, or when x is greater than -1 but less than 3. So here's another example. We want where f of x is greater than g of x, where this happens when f of x is above g of x. Remember, if f of x is above, then g of x will be below. So let's look at where f of x is above g of x. So this region here, okay, first let's separate these functions into regions where the two graphs intersect. So here the two graphs are intersecting, and let's say they intersect at an x value of 1. And another important place here is actually this vertical asymptote right here. Let's say it is -1. So now let's take a look at where f of x is above. F of x is above right here. The orange part, f of x is above. And really, that's the only place where f of x is above. So that happens when x is greater than -1 but less than 1. So if we were to look where f of x is less than g of x, so that is when f of x is below g of x. That would be here, because we can see that this part, the yellow part here, f of x is below, g of x is on top, and as well as this part here where f of x is below and g of x is on top. So that would be when x is greater than 1 or when x is less than -1. So on this one, we want where f of x is less than g of x. F of x is the function in black, and then g of x is the function in blue. So f of x less than g of x, so f of x must be below g of x. So where is f of x below g of x? Over here, it's below, and here as well, and everywhere else f of x is above. So that would be where x is greater than 4 or when x is greater than 0 but less than 2. Now let's say I make a slight change to this question and say that f of x is less than or equal to g of x. Now, the only difference here, we would need to be a little bit more careful. This stays the same. This part here stays the same. This part here stays the same. We still want f of x to be below g of x. But now, and where is that? It's still where the part we've highlighted in yellow. So that happens when x is greater than or equal to 4, or when x is greater than or equal to 0 but less than 2. Now notice here I did not put less than or equal to on this part here, because this function here, f of x, will never touch the vertical asymptote. So that is why on this one here you have to be a little bit more careful. Where you have a hyperbola, you are comparing a hyperbola with another function, and you have this equal sign here. You have to be a little bit more careful in terms of how you write your answer.